Something cracked open, not broke, not collapsed, cracked open in the specific, irreversible way that certain things crack when the pressure of containing them has finally exceeded the structural capacity of the container. When the interior reaches a density that the exterior simply cannot maintain anymore, and what was being held privately finds its way into the shared space, whether anyone was ready for it or not. The truth is out. Not because someone decided it was time, not because a plan was executed, or a conversation was carefully engineered, or a moment was selected for maximum effect, because it became impossible to keep in. Because the effort required to maintain the containment of both the what I did and the how I feel reached a point where the energy required exceeded the energy available. And so it came out in whatever form it came out, in whatever moment and whatever context, and however it landed for the people who received it. It is out now. And there is no version of this that puts it back. I want to begin with the "I'm not hiding anymore," because that phrase is the emotional center of this reading, and it carries the most information about what has been happening in the interior of this person. They have been hiding. I want to name that directly and without judgment before we go anywhere else. There is a period of concealment that preceded this moment. A stretch of time during which what I did was being carried privately and what I feel was being managed into something not quite visible, and the specific daily, continuously renewed effort of keeping both of those things from reaching the people who are now discovering them was part of how this person was operating. That concealment had a cost, not only to the people who deserved to know and did not, to the person maintaining it. Because concealment, when it involves something with genuine weight, is not passive. It requires active, ongoing, everyday, renewed effort. It requires the specific, exhausting work of tracking what has been said to whom and ensuring consistency across multiple relationships, of managing your own expressions and responses in the presence of people who do not know what you know, of living in two versions of reality simultaneously, the one that contains the truth and the one you are presenting. That is a significant, sustained effort, and it ended not through external force, through the collapse of the capacity to sustain it. Let me describe the moment of the ending, because the "oh my God" quality of the title suggests a specific, dramatic quality to the moment of revelation that I want to honor while also giving it its honest texture. The ending did not feel like relief immediately. It never does when concealment reaches its breaking point through internal collapse rather than through deliberate choice. Because deliberate choice carries the specific quality of having decided what to do and when and how, and having exercised some agency over the form of the revelation. Collapse carries something different. The specific, slightly disorienting quality of something having happened that was not fully chosen in the final moment, even if the conditions that made it happen were built over time. The truth came out, and in the immediate aftermath, before anything else arrived, a quality of exposure that was not entirely comfortable. Because the truth being out means things are now different in ways that cannot be controlled, means people know things that changes how they relate to the person who revealed them, means the version of the relationship that existed before the knowing is no longer available, means everything from here happens in the context of the truth rather than in the context of the managed version. That is a different world from the one that existed this morning. And the adjustment to that different world is happening in real time. And I want to speak to the two things that are now out, because the what I did and the how I feel are different in kind, and the difference matters. What I did is the accountability piece. Whatever it is that this person did, the specific action or pattern or choice or set of choices that they have been carrying privately is now visible, is now something that the relevant people in this situation have access to, is no longer something being managed into a particular framing by the person who did it. It is simply what happened, available to be seen as what happened without the protective layer of the concealment that had been shaping how it was experienced from the outside. That revelation is uncomfortable, but it is also the necessary predecessor to anything that could be genuine from here. Because the genuine requires the honest, and the honest requires the actual picture of what happened rather than the curated version. And while the discomfort of the actual picture being available is real, the alternative, continuing to relate to something built on an incomplete or misleading foundation, has its own deeper, longer-term cost. The truth being out about the what I did is the beginning of something real being possible. The how I feel is different. This is the piece that carries the most forward-facing weight, because how someone feels, unlike what they did, is not primarily about the past. It is about what is present now and what it means for what comes next. The revelation of how I feel is the revelation of an interior that has been concealed not because it was shameful, but because it was complicated. Because saying how I feel would have required also saying everything that the how I feel was complicated by. And that complexity is now visible. And that complexity is now visible. I want to describe what the complexity being visible actually produces, because visible complexity is a different thing from concealed complexity, even when the content is identical. Concealed complexity shapes everything around it without anyone being able to engage with it directly. It is the specific, slightly maddening quality of something influencing a dynamic from beneath the surface, while everyone above the surface is responding to effects without being able to address causes. Think of everything that was confusing about this situation before the revelation. The moments where this person's behavior did not quite make sense, where their responses seemed off-register in ways that produced a kind of unease without a clear explanation, where something felt present that was not being acknowledged, and the not acknowledging of it created a particular low-level friction in the dynamic. All of that was the concealed complexity at work. It was there, it was real, it was influencing everything. It simply was not available to be addressed. Now it is. Now the thing that was influencing everything from beneath the surface is on the surface, where it can be looked at directly, where the conversation can engage with it as what it actually is rather than as the mysterious distortion it was producing. That is a significant change in what is possible. I want to speak to how the people who now know are processing what they know, because they know is the final statement in this reading's title, and it is doing significant work. The knowing has landed in people in the specific, real, now I am in possession of new information way that landing of this kind always lands. And whatever they are doing with the information is shaping the immediate aftermath of the moment the truth came out. Some of them are surprised, genuinely surprised in the specific I did not see this coming way, that people are surprised when what they thought they understood about a situation turns out to have been significantly incomplete. When the picture they were working from, which seemed reasonably complete, had a large piece missing that the revelation has now provided. When the confusion they may have had about certain things that did not quite add up suddenly resolves because the missing piece explains them. The surprise is real, and alongside it, in some of them, something else. A particular quality of understanding that is the specific response to receiving information that is larger than expected, but that somehow makes a coherent picture when added to everything they already knew. That fills in gaps they had not identified as gaps until the filling revealed that they were there. A click of the full picture assembling. I want to speak to something about Virgo specifically, because you are at the center of this reading in a way that I want to make direct. You are the person they were not hiding from anymore, or you are one of the people, or you are the specific person whose knowing of both the what I did and the how I feel is the revelation that matters most in the full picture of what has just been made visible. And I want to speak to what it means to be the person who now knows, not the responsibility of it, not what you owe in response to the revelation, simply what it means to be in possession of a fuller picture of a situation that previously contained significant gaps. What it changes in your understanding of what has been happening, what it resolves about things that were confusing, what it confirms about things you may have sensed but could not yet substantiate. The fuller picture changes the landscape. Not all at once. The integration of significant new information takes time. There is a processing phase in which the new information is being placed in relationship to everything that was already known, in which the previous understanding is being revised, in which certain things are being re-understood through the corrected lens. That processing is happening in you right now. And what it produces, once it completes, is clarity. That processing is happening in you right now. And what it produces, once it completes, is clarity. I want to describe what Virgo clarity feels like specifically when it arrives in the context of a revelation like this one. Because Virgo clarity is a particular kind and it deserves its specific description. It is not the clarity of relief, not the specific, warm, everything is simple now quality of something that has resolved cleanly and left no loose ends. Virgo clarity is more precise and less immediately comfortable than that. It is the clarity of accurate inventory, the specific quality of finally knowing what you are actually dealing with rather than what you were working from before, of having a complete picture that, while it may be more complex than the incomplete one, is at least honest, of being able to look at the actual situation rather than the managed version and make an actual assessment of it. That assessment takes time, not because you are slow, because the assessment is thorough and the thoroughness requires moving through the full picture carefully rather than reacting to the surface of the revelation before the full implications have been traced. Give yourself the thoroughness. This is not a situation that rewards the immediate response. It rewards the considered one, the one that comes from someone who has sat with the full picture long enough to understand what it actually means and what their actual position is in relation to it. Tell me in the comments where you are in this processing. If the revelation I am describing has just arrived for you or is in the process of arriving. If the fuller picture is one that was expected or one that genuinely surprised you. If knowing changes how you understand the situation or whether it confirms something you already suspected, I want to know how this reading is reaching you. I want to speak to what happens now that the truth is out. Because out is a threshold, not a destination. The truth being known by the relevant people is the moment everything changes, but what it changes into is not predetermined, is not fixed simply by the fact of the revelation, is shaped by what the people who now know do with what they know, by the quality of the conversations that follow, by whether the honesty that produced the revelation is sustained, or whether, having produced the revelation, it retreats back into the management of impression. The sustainability of the honesty is the most important thing now. Not the revelation itself, which has already occurred, the quality of what follows it, because revelations followed by genuine honesty produce one kind of outcome, and revelations followed by the resumption of managed presentation produce a very different kind. The person who came out of hiding has a choice about whether to stay out of hiding, about whether the "I'm not hiding anymore" is a permanent change in orientation or a single forced moment of exposure that is quickly followed by a new architecture of concealment. What I am reading suggests the permanence version, not because the courage to maintain it is guaranteed, but because the collapse of the containment that produced the revelation suggests that the old architecture is no longer structurally viable, that the specific combination of what was being hidden, the complexity and the weight of both the what I did and the how I feel, has reached a point where the infrastructure required to continue concealing it is simply not available. The hiding is over, not as a choice in every individual moment, as a structural fact of what is no longer possible. The hiding is over, not as a choice in every individual moment, as a structural fact of what is no longer possible. I want to describe what that structural fact feels like from the inside of the person who has been hiding, because I think naming it will help you understand the quality of what is now present in them when you encounter them. It feels like being caught without the option of pretending not to be caught, not in the shameful sense, in the specific, strangely liberating sense of someone who has been managing a concealment for so long that the concealment itself has become a kind of prison, where the energy of maintaining the hidden thing has been consuming resources that would otherwise have been available for actual living, where the hiding has been structuring experience in ways that have been gradually narrowing what felt possible, and now the hiding is done. Not because the person is ready, because the hiding became impossible. And impossible things produce a specific quality of surrender that voluntary cessation never quite matches. The surrender of someone who has stopped not because they chose to stop, but because the stopping was no longer avoidable. That surrender, in its aftermath, tends to produce something unexpected, relief, even when the revelation was uncomfortable, even when the exposure was not chosen, even when the response from the people who now know is uncertain. The weight of the maintaining is gone, and the goneness of that weight is something they did not fully understand they were carrying until they were no longer carrying it. I want to speak to what the how I feel being visible means specifically, because the feeling, once visible, changes what is available between the people in this situation. Before the revelation, the feeling existed on one side of the dynamic without being available to the other side. It was influencing behavior from within the person holding it while being invisible to the person whose awareness of it would have changed how the dynamic was being navigated. That asymmetry is gone. Now the feeling is in the shared space where both people have access to it, where it can be engaged with directly rather than through the complicated, slightly distorted lens of one person navigating around a feeling they cannot name and another person navigating around the same feeling without knowing they are doing so, the navigation can become direct. That is what shared information produces, the possibility of direct navigation, of conversations that can engage with what is actually present rather than with the managed version of what is present. Whether that possibility is taken up, what the direct navigation produces, what the feeling being visible means for what comes next, all of that is the territory that follows from the revelation. And it is genuinely open in a way that the managed version never was. As we close, I want to give you one image that I think is the truest image in this entire reading. A room that has been reorganized, not dramatically, not the kind of reorganization that involves everything being moved and nothing being recognizable. The specific, subtler kind that happens when a piece of furniture that had been taking up space is removed and the room suddenly looks different, not because everything changed, but because the space that was being occupied is now available. And what was taking up space was the concealment, and the room without it has a different quality, has room that was not there before, has the specific, available, potentially fillable quality of space that has been freed rather than space that was always empty. That room is the situation you are now in. The concealment is gone. The space it was occupying is available. What fills it from here is the question that the truth being out has opened rather than answered. And unlike the managed version, which was answering the question in advance by filling all the available space with the architecture of concealment, the honest version leaves the answer genuinely open. That openness is the gift of the truth being out. Even when the truth being out was uncomfortable in the arriving, even when the oh my God quality was real, the room is different now, and different in this case is better.